Welcome back, Albert here. Today we will be talking about Ar-Gimilzôr, the 23rd ruler of Numenor. Gimilzor was born in the year 2960 SA and was the only son of Sakalthor. Gimilzor's name means star fire, although this translation in respect of his elvish name is debatable, as his high elvish name was recorded in the Scroll of the Kings as Tar Tilemnar, which could be translated as King, Fire of Heaven, or Silver Fire, or just of Silver. So unlike kings before with the Adunic name and elvish name matching, there is a mismatch in translation. But the choice I leave to you. There isn't any specific information about his youth, but based on who his father was and the current state of the Númenorean people, it's not hard to assume a few things. He was not a friend to any of the faithful Númenorean, he fully endorsed the king's men, and he had nothing but ill feelings towards the Valar growing up. These traits would have made him very popular among his people as the king's heir. An exact date and time can't be confirmed, but at some stage before 3035 SA, he would also take a wife, called Inzilbêth. Inzilbêth's name meant flower speaker. She was a woman of great beauty, a lady descended from Tar Calmakil, as his son, Gimilzagar, was her father, and she was also the niece of Eärendor, the 15th Lord of Andúnie, as her mother was Lindore, his sister. But this marriage was not to her liking, as she was in heart one of the faithful Númenorean, taught by her mother, brought up on the tales of the great faithful Númenorean of old. This, of course, she kept secret from her future husband, when he asked, or perhaps forced her, to give her hand in marriage. These were dangerous times. It was not wise to deny the desires of the kings and their sons, as they had grown extremely proud. And I dare say she feared for her family, as suspicion may have fallen on them, or at least on her mother, if she had denied his request. In 3102 SA, after the death of his father, Gimilzor was crowned king, and this is where his youthful nature would take on a new life. Once he was crowned king, he quickly outlawed the use of all elvish tongue on the Isle of Numenor, and punished anyone that used it, continuing and now greatly enforcing the tradition of his father and grandfather, which of course drew his focus primarily on the faithful Númenorean. He was a great enemy of the faithful, and persecuted them every chance he got during his reign. The suspected ties the faithful had with the Elves of Tol Eressëa only compounded his suspicious nature, because as far as he was concerned, the elves were spies of the Valar, whose influence he openly despised. He punished those that still welcomed the ships of Eressëa, that still came secretly to the west shores of the island. Eventually, the king's distrust of the faithful caused him to exile them to the east of the island, near the haven of Romena. There he kept them under surveillance. He desired to end all friendship between the Numenor and the Eldar. Because of the king's harsh treatment of them, the faithful began leaving Numenor in increasing numbers during this time, and settling near Pelegir, their greatest haven in Middle-earth. Or many sailed to the northern shores, where they might speak still with the Eldar in the kingdom of Gil-galad. This interaction between the faithful and the elves was known to the king and his father before, but so long as the faithful departed Numenor and did not return, they were not concerned. One can only imagine the grief the faithful felt, having to leave the island. If only they had known this would be the last time they would ever set foot on the blessed isle. Unsurprisingly, all of this was known to the Valar. They were very disappointed with the kings of Numenor, and I dare say the Númenóreans in general. They closed their hearts to them. The ships of Eressëa came never again out of the sunset, and the havens of Andúnie were abandoned. In addition to his heavy-handed policies against the faithful, Ar-Gimilzôr completely neglected traditions long held even by the rebellious kings before him, such as the tending of the white tree of Numenor, Nimloth, which grew in the king's court in Armenilos. This was a symbol of ancient friendship between the Numenor and the West, a gift by the Eldar from Tol Eressëa. Gimilzor was also the first of the kings to never ascend the Meneltamar mountain and display reverence to Eru. He refused. Up to this point, especially since the days of Tar and Calimon, the rulers of Numenor had started to neglect the religious ceremonies of the three prayers, but never completely abandoned them. As mentioned earlier, he married Inzilbêth, and although there was little love between them, they would have two sons together, Inzilbêth, who was the eldest son, and Gimilzor. And just like their father and mother, the brothers didn't see eye to eye growing up, mostly due to the fact Inzilbêth was like his mother in mind as in body, and because of his mother he was devoted to the Valar and loyal to the Eldar, whereas Gimilzor was much more like his father, drawn to the ways of the king's men. Perhaps the king sensed the nature of his firstborn and made sure Gimilzor was given more personal attention. It's not a surprise that Gimilzor preferred to see the scepter of Numenor go to the hand of his younger son, but he could not change the laws of Numenor in this matter. More than likely he was opposed by the remaining lords of Andúnie, as they were ever among the chief councillors of the scepter. It would seem, even though the king was not bound by the laws and traditions of the Eldar, he was bound to the laws of his own people, whether he liked it or not. And so it came to pass that in 3177 SA, at the age of 217, ruling for 75 years, Ar-Gimilzor died, and the scepter of kingship would pass to his eldest child, Inzilbêth, thus ending the life of Ar-Gimilzor. As you can see, everything has changed, and not for the better. We are drawing to the end. Within the growing darkness, a single star is born within Inzilbêth. But the shadow now gripping all corners of Numenor may be too deep to overcome. It was absolutely fascinating researching this king and his life. It brought together so many different elements we have discovered about the Numenorian people since I started this series. Interestingly enough, as bad as Gimilzor was, ironically he did do one good thing, although by accident. His actions against the faithful Númenorean would have an unexpected positive result. Those faithful who stayed in Numenor until its downfall would eventually be grateful to him. Why, you ask? Because the faithful that he forced to live on the east side of the island before the destruction of Numenor were placed in the perfect geographical location at the time to escape the disaster that was to come, sailing east to Middle-earth. It is fascinating how he was unable to change the law to allow his favourite son to rule after his death. The fact Tar Aldarion, the sixth ruler of Numenor, was able to amend the Númenorean Ascension law so the eldest child of the king could be prince or princess heir, replacing the previous Ascension law, only the eldest son could be heir, is very interesting. This, of course, allowing ruling Númenorian queens to rise as sole rulers. It is not a surprise he detested the lords of Andúnie and their positions on the Council of Scepter, who remained loyal to the founding principles of Numenor, and who were the last remaining faithful Númenorian who still held sway over the king, even though others of their own kind were persecuted. It must have boiled the king's blood to have his request denied. I will be talking a lot more about the lords of Andúnie over my next few episodes as I weave together the final moments of Numenor. So keep watching to catch some excellent insight and possible hints on where my channel will be going next. I hope you enjoyed that. Thanks once again for listening. If you like this, please subscribe, like or comment. And as always, may the light of Earendil guide your way.